I'm going to start this discussion by bringing to everybody's notice a point that I've observed in our last 12 months at a B school. We spend our days and nights talking about startups, business models, market size, market potential, target segments, human capital, and a million other terms. But however, almost all of these models and ideas are built for and built by India 1 and India 2, right? The so-called developed and emerging segments of society. There is no position for India 3, the developing, let's say marginalized segment of society in this. These segments have so far remained outside the ambit of businesses, but there are winds of change coming our way, right? And that brings us to today's topic: inclusive businesses driving profits with purpose and empowering the underserved. Be it the goodness of corporates, which is a rare thing to observe, or regulatory norms like CSR and ESG compliance, businesses are increasingly focusing on inclusivity of the underserved. So today's discussion will be centered around this important topic. I'd like to quickly just talk about what inclusive business as a term means. It seems like a buzzword that's being thrown around in industry reports, for annual reports, right? But what does the word inclusive business actually mean to you? For example, Amul comes to my mind. So what comes to your mind when you hear this word, Richa?
So, thank you for the question.
Why?
To begin with, I don't think, like you said, right, it's a buzzword. I don't think inclusive business is a charity. It is basically including everyone, especially the underserved, in the value chain. So, in the form of producer or employees or consumers, etc., right? You have to include everyone in the value chain by ensuring that organization is making money. However, at the same time, we are ensuring that money is there are more important things than money. So objectives that the organization has are more important than money itself, the profit. Now that's one thing. I can think of several examples. We recently had a guest lecture from Flipkart where we got to know about the warehouses that they have. So PWD warehouse they have, and they have another warehouse called Super Queens, Chennai Super Queens, right? So those are amazing examples of how they included employees, PWDs, these women as a part of their value chains, as a part of employees. One example that comes to my mind and something I've noticed and witnessed myself personally is Seva Chicken. I've mentioned it in the class as well, so I'll just elaborate on that. They started with getting rural women and also Muslim women as their chicken curry workers. Now they trained them initially. Now they have fashion shows. They've got these big showrooms in Lucknow and several other places. They've been awarded, I think they recently got President Award for the same. So they are making money, they are ensuring that these women have employment as well as ensuring that their children are educated. And at the same time, they are who they are right now. They are known everywhere with the name Seva Chicken. So yeah, that's a word from my side. It's not exactly charity. It is. It's a lot about profit, but at the same time having a good heart and thinking about everybody while you make money.
Vivek, how about you?
Sure. I completely resonate with what Richa said. To me, also inclusive business refers to a model where businesses engage and create opportunities within their value chain for the underserved communities. It's more about integrating both the social and economic aspects into the core business principles, just beyond the traditional so-called status quo of maintaining social responsibility as such. You had mentioned Amul, a great example. We can even see the advertisements had right from the very unit position to the highest position, everyone being catered to in the advertisement itself. A very recent example would be even in the so-called buzz today of quick commerce. Blinkit has a quick commerce and dark store in Delhi, which is just catering, which has people who are working in PWD. So they are all person with disability, but then all of those are working to make sure that the dark store is successful. And it has houses around 18 to 20 people as well. So a big feat because you see that even the upcoming trends, they are mindful of this. Another example would be Grameen Bank, where they don't even think about this and they focus on providing microloans to people who have access to, not usually have access to traditional banking services. And even if they have, they are usually not mindful or they don't know what that particular thing is used for.
Does anybody else have their views?
So I just like to add one small part because it's quite elegantly put by Vivek and Richa over there. But to me, inclusive business is a very important aspect about how we have to straddle the pyramid. So traditionally, most corporations tend to cater towards the top of the pyramid because that's where the real wealth lies. That's where the profitability is. However, when you talk about inclusive business, it's about creating and innovating new business models that can that not necessarily look at just as wealth and look at something beyond. So that becomes a very central tenet to how we actually approach inclusive business as a whole.
Wonderful. So, at least the image that has been painted in my mind so far is that businesses are not just doing this as a charity, for a charitable activity. It actually has some business sense to it. But that again brings me to a current observation that's going on in the world. So, in a world where even presidents of countries question ESG compliance and even global warming, to be inclusive, there's a lot of noise in the public sphere which says that companies need to sacrifice profits to be inclusive, right? So, do you agree with this, or do you think it's possible to balance both profit and purpose?
Yeah, that's a good question, Rohit. Personally, I do believe that you can balance profit and purpose. So for that, we can think about some examples. For example, like Patagonia, they are a company where they focused on sustainability, and even through that, they were able to build loyalty and boost profits. Another example is Project Shakti. So in that case, also they provide women, rural women with employment, and they are also able to create a new distribution channel. We can also talk about like operational efficiency, where you take solar energy and not only does it reduce environmental impact, but it also lowers long term costs. So we can see in all these examples that we are focusing on profit, but also there's a good purpose to it.
So I would also like to add to that point that profit and purpose are not mutually exclusive. Basically, you see nowadays we are having very much well aware and well informed customer base who are asking the companies the accountability to provide economically viable ecologically viable products, which are also socially well sourced and which are governed with BEI practices in mind. And nowadays, the customer are also asking for belongingness, that the company also provide belongingness to the employees. Some of the good examples of this would be Mahindra's and Tata Steel's pledge to be carbon neutral. And there are other examples also where Nike was forced to change their supply chains to meet the cotton that is sourced from Xinjiang. And another example for DEI would be recent rebranding of companies to include the diverse and the even the neurodivergent people in their workforce. This is because this is a very pull type of segment that the customers are demanding. So if they want a long-term survivability, the companies have to keep up with the pace of the market, where the customer are aware and asking for these type of products.
Good perspective. Does anyone else have something to add?
You see, many companies have started realizing that purpose-driven strategies can only drive long-term profitability. For example, businesses as such, they invest in sustainability, they might incur heavy cost upfront, and we are not going to deny that part because, of course, you're trying to change something which has been a traditional now and you're trying to include something new, so you definitely incur a cost. But on the flip side, if you see, apart from yes, the usual good PR which you get, it's also going to increase a lot of operational efficiencies. You're going to get a lot of effectiveness on that front. Strong brand loyalty, because as Rohit and even Abhay pointed out, there have been brands that have been built just on the basis that we are sustainable as such. And access to newer customer segments that value those principles. We all know how the upcoming people who are coming, they are pretty much so much pro sustainable as such. And finally, additionally, consumers, especially younger generation, as I pointed out, they are increasingly demanding that companies align with these values, because if they don't, there is a huge uproar as such, even on the Twitter or whatever things we see around.
So carrying forward Vivek's point, so actually pivoting your company strategy towards sustainability and ESG goals can actually result a boost in profitability and sales. For case in point for this is Arvind Textiles. Now, Arvind Textiles was facing huge tariffs and in price increases due to imposition of tariffs in US. As from the list of generally GSP, textile products was removed from India. Indian textile products were removed. So what Arvind did was they actually pivoted towards creating eco-friendly textiles. So they were using recycled products to make the fabrics, and now they use this as a USP through which they partnered with different brands in the US, and they supplied this textile to the US and were able to charge premiums for that. So this helped them drive profitability as well as sales volume. So that would be it.
Great, these are some very wonderful examples that we're all learning here. All this talk about big companies and startups pivoting after coming up with new products, changing themselves to meet the public demand reminds me of the few conversations and guest lectures we had in class. A lot of them related to payments bank. There's a trend of startups and big companies which try to create products or services for the rural or low income communities, but a lot of them don't really take off. One example that comes to my mind is Paytm Payments Bank, right? They were catering to the rural community, but they didn't really take off and had to shut shop within a couple of years. Why do you think it is so? And if you were in their place, what would you do differently?
So I would like to take that question. To begin with, I can think of two reasons actually. First, that comes to my mind is retaining these people, right? So until unless you are making them a part as an employee, what Airtel Payment Bank did was they were including these people, the marginalized people, as a part as consumers. Now, what happens is if the success of your project is related to how much how well these people connect, whether these people continue with your plan or not, are they motivated enough or not, or whether they are getting the success or not, right? Until up till that point, if the success is related to their success, then the project becomes problematic. Why? Because you have to consistently keep these people motivated, and it's not easy. It's not easy to make sure that these people are a part of your project as much as you are. If that happens, and which is something that happened with Airtel Payment Banks as well, they were not able to retain all the consumer. They had a lot of consumer, but they were not active consumer, right? So that is one thing that I can think of. My sister right now is working with a great organization called India XLRI. They work with such programs. They work with several organizations, big organizations like World Bank, and trying to sort of create social entrepreneurship in villages. Now, even if you train people, let's say you train them to do some craft or something like that, right? What if they don't continue with that? Then your project takes a fall. So that is one thing that I can think of. And second reason, especially for startup, is that startups have just limited resources, right? And getting the funding is not easy, especially when it comes to social entrepreneurship. VCs and investors are not really interested when it comes to social entrepreneurship. So startups with their limited resources often find it difficult to access these people in the first place. If let's say somebody starting from Jamshedpur, now at the best you can cater to this Jamshedpur, you can reach the people in Jamshedpur or areas around it. What if your idea is made for some place bigger? In order to reach there, you need to have enough resources. And it's not just getting everybody together, organizing and structuring these people, training them requires a lot of efforts and resources, which startups usually don't have when it comes to social entrepreneurship particularly. So yeah, that could be another reason why startups fail. I worked with one such startup. They were working from Lucknow, getting these housewives to work. But then it worked, the same idea didn't work in Lucknow, but it worked very well in Mumbai because there were more people who were buying their product. So yeah, that could be another reason why startups don't really, they are not able to achieve the success they can if they are set with more resources.
So I think this I feel is a really good time to steal a few notes from a marketer's cookbook, because in marketing you really talk a lot about product market fits and understanding the culture of people and consumers, and that is something that is really crucial when you start creating products and financial instruments which address a completely hitherto unaddressed side of the market. So one of the most obvious examples would be something as simple yet complicated as culture. So sitting in these skyscrapers, sitting in metropolitan cities, it's very easy for us to just use our theoretical frameworks and just surmise what might be beneficial for these people. But the fact of the matter is, we have not even an inkling of an idea of how their normal lives are, like what their culture is, because we haven't really, as Richa put it so succinctly, we don't have access to it. Many people probably haven't even lived those experiences yet. So understanding their culture and sort of putting on that marketing lens to look at it from a different perspective becomes very important, and that can make or break the efficiency and the efficacy of a product.
Richa and Shadul have mainly covered all the points. I just wanted to have one more thing here. Like in these, what can happen is like sometimes trust can be a problem. So like these are like big corporations who are coming in. So like from a rural perspective, you have to think like they may be like this massive organization is coming and occupying. Maybe they might be hostile because of that, and like for that the corporations have to keep in mind that there should be like awareness programs to explain what all they are doing, why why it will be beneficial for them, show the mutual interest, and also like there should be local engagement. Like they should have people from their community also participating and in key roles, so that these people feel that they can be trusted, because that is very important. And big corporations fail when they don't incorporate that into their plan.
Yeah, so another factor which comes to mind is regulation, especially in the fintech area when companies are trying to create products which serve the underserved. Sometimes regulation becomes a huge hurdle. Take the case of payments bank. Now these banks do not have a full banking license by RBI. This means that they cannot lend funds to the people. Basically, they cannot give credit. Also, there's a quantum limit of 1 lakh to the tune of which they can only accept deposits. This means for a bank, the primary source of income, which is the interest differential between the interest rate they give and the interest rate they earn, that place they cannot earn any revenue. And for the payments bank, the primary source of revenue was transactions. Now with UPI coming in and transactions becoming apparently free for the nation, this meant that the business model itself became unsustainable. So sometimes due to the regulatory environment, in the fintech segment specifically, the business model itself becomes unsustainable for them to proceed any further, and that's why they fall off.
Very wonderful ideas being discussed here, especially the shedding of light on technology. Michelle, I'd like to take this one step forward and dig deeper into this. So we see tech everywhere now, right? Aadhaar, UPI, and even the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana scheme is based out of a massive database and a lot of tech behind it. Now I'm aware that a lot of you come from a tech background, and all of you have worked with technology in large-scale projects. So in your view, how can technology help businesses be more inclusive, especially for people in rural areas?
Yeah, so here firstly, what technology does is it provides accessibility to these businesses. Take the example of the national agricultural market. Farmers can actually look up the mandi prices at different mandis, and then they can decide where to sell them. So again, another benefit is the delivery of services. Now in Pakistan, they have launched a smart village project through which through telecom operators. Now here they identify the local needs of each individual in the village, and through that they use e-services to provide them like e-education or providing girls' high schools or conducting science classes for them. So the basic thing that technology can do for them is provide accessibility to previously inaccessible domains.
I'd like to get your perspective on this.
Yeah. So technology in rural India is basically one of those things which is right now the world's case study, to be frank. Because in last few years we have seen that mobile phone technology and internet has penetrated to the even the remotest part of India. Even a Kisan in a very remote area is getting live weather updates and is getting very seed updates and everything from A to Z on his mobile phone. Not to also add, but the Jam Trinity. It is like literally the world case study right now. Even Elon Musk a few days ago just said that India has counted 620 million votes or something in one day, while USA's California, which is home to Silicon Valley, is still counting the votes. So, in this regard, I believe that nobody last 10 years ago would have imagined that a supercomputer's computation power would reach a Kisan in a remote part of India. But ITC's e-Chopal and initiatives like that have made that possible. They are sending the live weather updates, they are sending the live market prices to the Kisans and to the farmers in the rural India, to the smallest who are owning 1 acre or 1 hectare of land, to the largest of the farmers. They are getting the democratized information to make the best out of their soil. And that's where I believe that technology has played a huge and humongous role in this regard.
It's wonderful. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add here?
Yeah, I just want to add that like Abhay also mentioned, it's a great equalizer, and it can drive inclusivity. So with technology, there are programs like ENAM where the farmers can basically get better prices for their products, and we also have UPI mobile wallets now, and that has connected people with the internet and basic access without removing the middlemen. Finally, coming to skill education, also we have Byju's and Unacademy. These provide quality education to these farmers, and they make them more aware of how to use technology and how to implement them. And one another thing is like even regional regions where language is a barrier, we have technology even for that, where you can use language interpreters, which makes it more accessible for non-literate users. So these are some advantages where technology has been really beneficial.
Just to wrap it up here, I believe the discussion so far has mostly been how big corporates can try to reach the underserved and what sort of changes they need to do. Like, for example, Shashwat was mentioning that you look at it from a marketer's lens, right? But at the end of the day, we are all students here. And it might feel like, and it does feel like right now, that inclusive businesses are a job for big corporations, for the national policy makers. But do you think young people like us can play a role in this aspect?
A resounding yes from my end. Because see, even right now, all thanks to Professor Pradhan, we are doing a course where we are trying to learn as to how we can, from our end, take small steps. It may not be as monumental as how you said policymakers or the other industries making it, but if we are trying to make an impact from our own end, even in all small ways, it helps us. It helps them a lot. We had a session with people who work at Excel here, and you could realize how they did not know a lot of things. The same work SBI could have done. We just accelerated it. We had time. We informed them of the various schemes. They are happy to know. They are happy to invest in it. They are happy to at least go to the bank and discuss more on it. How can I do? What would be the best lock-in period for me? And on those lines, talking about how right now even the young activists are working. It's not just this what ER students. We have a lot of young entrepreneurs, advocates, and activists who are challenging the status quo. Some examples which come to my mind: Malala Fund. Everybody would know Malala Yousafzai, who has been championing the all rights accordingly for girls' education throughout the world as of now. There is Jiva. It's a social enterprise, Pranay, started by young entrepreneurs in India. It says handmade jewelry that would be created by artisans from marginalized communities itself. And a portion of their proceeds, whatever they earn, it again goes back to them, which is just such a noble thought on their part.
Does anybody else like to add?
I'm aware that speaking her name out here might spark a few controversies, but I think that talking about Greta Thunberg is a pretty relevant thing in this, in regard of this very discussion, because I don't want to discuss the relevance and the efficacy of what she did and what she said, but the fact is that there was a time in the history of our world that everybody on this planet knew of Greta Thunberg, and more importantly, they knew that she was unsatisfied. It forced major companies to take note and acknowledge this movement that she was going for. And although it may be true that like for the youth of the world, consumer mindsets are, they shift very slowly. It's a very subtle thing to actually understand how consumers change their mindset. But Greta Thunberg serves a very concrete example of how the youth of the world can be heard, and more importantly, people can actually mobilize themselves around it. So yes, we might be always under the impression that we don't have that loud of a voice, but there have been instances in the history of the world, not just the recent past, where young people and small people have actually made their voice heard and actually brought about big changes. Yeah.
Very wonderful example discussed here so far, and wonderful insights, of course. So just to wrap it up, what I believe all of us have underlined here in this discussion is that if you really want to do something, you can do it. That's essentially it, right? Also reminds me of Tata Steel right now. TSF Foundation has 2 initiatives going on in Dalma Forest, where they're working with the tribals there to create small pellets from the leaves. So these pellets have a lot of calorific value that is used for burning, not in Tata Steel of course, but in other plants of theirs. And they've actually successfully incorporated them, and they have generated about 1 to 1.5 crore revenue every year for a crowd of 200-300. Yeah, there is just one example that comes to mind. So yeah, I'd like to wrap up this discussion by stating that if you really want to do it, right, if you want to be a change for the world, if you want to be the voice of that change, I believe all of us should just start doing it right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.